Welcome back to the Pain Game YouTube channel, and Riyadh season Wembley edition is right around the corner, the 21st of September. Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois, the main event in one stacked card, and the Pain Game will be live during the fights inside Wembley Stadium. I cannot believe I'm saying that to you lot. I am so hyped for this night. It's going to be one of the best events I've ever been to. And today we are talking about Anthony Joshua's story so far, because that story, at least in boxing terms, is nearing the final chapter, and we want to know how it's going to end. Will it end with an undisputed world title? Will it end with a win over Tyson Fury? All of that legacy is on the line in this fight against Daniel Dubois, because if you lose this, well, that's all a write-off. And that story started in 1989 in Watford when AJ was born, and his name was actually his full name. I've got this written up here because I don't want to fuck this up. Anthony Oluwafemi Olaseni Joshua, and he was nicknamed Femi as a part of his middle name at school. Now, AJ had spent his early life in Hertfordshire, England, but he did go to Nigeria for boarding school for a few years there, but he returned around 12 years old after his parents had divorced. And it was around this time, it seems, that his passion for sports would begin, because he was kicking arse at football, good in the athletics. He even set the year 9 record, apparently, for the 100-metre sprint at 11.6 seconds. So he would have been, 13, 14, blasting out times like that. I mean, just a born athlete. And after school finished, AJ was actually doing a bit of bricklaying, which I kind of love because it's such a normal working man job. And I think that is part of the inspiration of Anthony Joshua, that he was doing something like that and flicked the switch on himself and transformed his whole life. And it just shows, like, all right, he did have the genetics, I'm not going to lie, but it shows kids out there what's fucking possible. And he started boxing at around 18 years old, which is mind-blowing, because to get to the level he's got to, most fighters usually start a lot younger. So AJ was a freak, like, quite clearly. He's a special athlete, and within 2 years of starting boxing, he was winning amateur titles. Now, it wasn't all plain sailing, because in 2009, he was actually put on remand in Reading prison for what AJ describes as fighting and other crazy stuff, and he was made to wear a tag around his ankle. So that also shows a very human side of AJ, that he wasn't fucking Mr. Clean Cut and Perfect from day one, and he was fucking up, and there must have been some big changes needed to have been made to this kid's lifestyle to get him to fulfill his potential from a kid making those kind of mistakes. And in 2010, he actually won the British title at the Amateur Championships, which got him his call up to Team GB, which was really where a lot of this legacy that AJ has built off of started. And you're thinking, what a platform that would have given him at that time, and yet he still wasn't able to stay squeaky clean because he got arrested again. And he was pulled over for speeding, but they actually looked in the car and realised he had 8 ounces of cannabis at the time. And he was charged with possession and intent to supply. And when you've got the future that he had in his hands right at that moment, you know, the journey wasn't written then. It was all in front of him, and there's no guarantees. And everyone in the community is probably looking at you like, do it for us, kid. And he's probably feeling fucking terrified, like he's about to fuck this all up for himself. And maybe that was the frightening moment that he needed at that time. I don't know. But the maximum sentence he could have faced would have been 14 years in jail. If that doesn't put the shits up you as a young lad, I'm not sure what will. Now, he pled guilty at Crown Court, which meant they'd go a lot more lenient on him. And with the level of amount of weed he had in his car, it wasn't like he was the biggest kingpin in town. So they gave him a 12-month community sentence with 100 hours unpaid work. But more than that, he was then suspended from Team GB. And that must have been a devastating moment when you think about it, right? Like, all of his hopes and dreams of winning a gold medal flushed down the toilet out of nowhere. You know, you've got to explain that to your mother as well. So that's another thing to worry about. Now, luckily, he did go on to earn his place back on Team GB. And he actually went to the World Championships that year and won a silver medal. And at that point, all eyes in Team GB, all of their attention was on him. This was the guy that we were going to build into Olympic champion, and he was destined for the Olympics. And here was the moment AJ made his entrance, and it must have been quite intimidating, because the guy he was actually fighting for the Olympic gold medal had won the last Olympic final, and he was a real seasoned guy at this level. This guy here, Camarel, his name was, a very, very smooth operator. And to be honest with you, when I first watched this, I did think he probably won the decision, but the crowd were massive for AJ. As you can imagine, It was held in London in 2012. But AJ did well. He did brilliantly. I'm not going to say he shouldn't have won the gold medal, but it was a close fight. Yeah, you can just see AJ sort of getting outlanded a little bit sometimes. And this guy, you know, he's a very good mover. Mind you, it was a fucking great fight. Looking back at this, it's very fun to watch. AJ's getting some... Ooh, I can't believe he won this. He took some smacks there, like, to be fair. Like, and obviously, this is not a 12-round pro fight, right? You're not boxing each other looking for the knockout in the 10th round, right? You're just trying to hit and don't get hit and score points as quick as you can. It's mad how much AJ's improved since then. Do you know what? Like, I got to give him credit. He fights like a totally different boxer right now. And that was a lovely left hook from... And another... Ooh, lovely left hook from AJ there. You can tell they're both fucked already. And that was the moment Anthony Joshua was crowned Olympic gold medalist. And that is a huge moment in any fighter's career, but especially for a young man. That is the moment where you start to believe, I can do anything I set my mind to here. And at the time, British boxing was a bit stale. It was in a bit of a lull. And when Eddie Hearn spotted Anthony Joshua, went and signed him, that was a match made in heaven. And it was something that would propel British boxing back to the very top. Eddie did a great job on AJ. I'm not saying he couldn't have done better, and maybe he could have given him a bit more experience before getting him world title fights. And there's a lot of people who've said a lot of things, but what we can't deny is they did a lot of great things for British boxing, because when you put on a big AJ event, you're not only feeding AJ, you're feeding the crop of fighters who are on the undercard and giving out opportunities. And this was something that British boxing, in having a star like AJ, had desperately needed. Now, what Eddie did, which was very smart, was before he dropped AJ in with the other Sharks and make other big fights, he took him all over the UK so that people from all over could see him, gravitate towards him, get to know him, and see him knock out some taxi drivers. And it was great for his reputation, and it made people want to see him in a big fight, which is exactly what they gave us, because Dillian Whyte had previously beaten Anthony Joshua in the amateurs and was also making a name for himself. And this was AJ's first really big test. And what I loved about this fight is there was no feeling out process, right? AJ now very controlled, very clever in the ring. Back then, it was just pure venom, right? He was an animal ready to explode, but so was Dillian Whyte. And when you've got dance partners like this who are just ready to brawl, it was so good. And the way AJ's talking shit to Dillian, I mean, the history that they had with each other also helped. The build-up was great. And you can see, first round, no feeling out. The crowd are on their feet. It was fucking electric. And honestly, I'll never forget the feeling that we had around AJ at this point, because it was the unknown. But honestly, what we did know is the kid was punching with spite and had bags of muscle and talent, and took one right on the chin there, no problem. It just felt like almost like a new Mike Tyson. I'm not saying he looked like Mike Tyson and fought like him, but the energy and the way the Brits felt about him, the hope was there. Finally, we've got a young star, and you can see he's really sticking it on Dillian Whyte, and the crowd were on their feet. It was fucking class. And look at him, smiling at him, goading him. Oh my God, he's playing with his food. And look at this, man, the explosiveness and the fucking... This is the birth of a monster, this was. Credit to fucking Dillian, though. What a fucking fighter he was back then as well. He had a real chin, and he had a real... I won't go down about him as well, which no one up to that point had stood any of this level of power from him. It's the way AJ... It's that youth in him where now he's so much more controlled with his emotions in the ring. But when you see him there, just putting everything behind every shot and smiling while doing it, it's fucking entertaining, like. And at the end of the first round, when the referee jumps in to separate them, AJ sort of landed a dig on just at the last second, and Dillian loses his fucking mind. He's also frustrated that he's obviously losing that round. And the fact that everyone jumped in like this, to say this was box office is an understatement. Look at it. It's absolute fucking chaos. I wouldn't be shocked if this sort of shit happened at Wembley. Now, AJ continued to put the pressure on. As you can see, he's on the front foot. He's got Dillian against the ropes. But the gas tank, that was something that we hadn't really... I mean, he's never needed a gas tank at this point in his career, because people were just going down. And you can see he's thrown caution to the wind here. There's no fear of gassing out at all. And what a fucking shot Dillian Whyte took there. But Dillian answered it. And it was the first time we'd ever seen AJ's legs get wobbly. And he really looked in fucking trouble here. Oh, God, it doesn't get better than this. Like, I could see this happening against Dubois. But, like, I'm not saying that will happen. But I wouldn't be shocked because they've got so much fucking power, the pair of them. Dillian smashing AJ with everything. He's got AJ in a lovely variety of punches despite his age at the time. And it did slow down for a bit there. He catches Dillian with on the side of the temple and his legs just, yep, there you go. His legs completely go. Dillian trying to get his legs back, but AJ's tuning up the sweet chin music, and the uppercut absolutely finishes Dillian Whyte in spectacular fashion. And I've seen this image so many times of AJ getting up on those ropes and screaming like the lion in the Lion's Den. Oh, what a fucking performance that was. That was where he became a bit of a household name, really. That was the moment. And in AJ's very next fight, he would fight Charles Martin for the IBF heavyweight title of the world. It was a huge opportunity for him and a chance to just put the full stop on the last performance against Dillian Whyte to say, not only am I that guy, I'm now world champion. And Charles Martin, although since then has had, you know, a decent career, he was no match for Anthony Joshua, and the power was ridiculous. You can see Martin is really reluctant to get in too close here. Again, I'm seeing so much improvement since then from AJ. It's a real credit to the work that he's put in. Piston of a right hand. That is a shotgun. And that clearly scrambled him, that like. AJ then shows his tremendous finishing instincts with yet another right hand. And he just sort of smiles and goes, that's what I do. I'm AJ. And Charles Martin's wondering what fucking day it is, bless him. Oh, God. Definitely right to wave that off. And there it is, the world champ, the first of many. And he has an opportunity on 21st of September to become a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world, which is fucking unbelievable. And I know boxing politics are what they are, but that's not Anthony Joshua's fault. And after AJ defended that belt a couple of times, it was time for him to get in the ring with one of the greatest heavyweights of the generation, Vladimir Klitschko, who'd not long been defeated by Tyson Fury, but his stock was still extremely high, and it was still a very serious test, especially for AJ, who was much younger than him. And when I was watching the fight, I remember kind of expecting AJ to do what he'd been doing, which is demolish this guy. But what I had to do was give credit to the wily veteran Klitschko, who fought a very smart fight. He looked a lot better than he'd previously looked against Tyson Fury. It looked like he'd taken this whole camp seriously. And for the first few rounds, AJ was looking frustrated. He was looking like he was in there against a bit of a grandmaster who, despite not having the physicality AJ had, still had the answers through his intelligence. Now, the frustration of AJ would reach boiling point by round 5. I remember him going into his corner at the end of round 4 looking fucked off, and he comes out in round 5 meaning business, straight into Klitschko, as you can see here, straight with that big left. And he's got it in his head, I'm knocking you down here. No, you're going down. I don't care what I've got to do. I'm just going to keep hitting you until you go down. This ain't boxing tactics anymore, bro. I'm fighting you like I fought Dillian Whyte. He's getting after it. Lovely left hook there. And he's putting it on him. And there's a drop there from Klitschko. And up to that point, Klitschko done so well. That must have been a pretty demoralizing moment for him. The problem is when AJ gets it in his head that I'm finishing you now, at this level in his career, he really wasn't prepared for the guy not to be finished because everyone else before him had gone. And he's still laying into him. He's chasing Klitschko around the ring. He's not anticipating the danger. And this did actually catch up with him against Andy Ruiz as well. And you can see, to be fair to Klitschko, he's realizing that AJ, the punches that have been thrown, so many heavy, hard punches, they're getting a bit slower, they're getting a bit lighter because AJ's carrying a lot of muscle. And Klitschko's throwing a few back of his own. AJ misses with the uppercut. Stiff right from Klitschko, answered by AJ. This is beautiful. And a left hook to the chin of AJ, and another left to AJ. For AJ, people say he hasn't got a good chin, you know. He took some bangs in this fight, mate. It's his coordination a little bit. He doesn't go out or anything. His legs don't completely go. He just gets a bit discombobulated. And you can see AJ gave so much in that last round. And he's paying for it now with a straight right hand from Klitschko. And you know what? He actually probably did the best thing possible by going down immediately because it meant he didn't suffer even more damage. It could have gotten even worse for him if he'd stayed on his feet. First time we'd seen AJ really hurt this. Klitschko flying in with that leap and left hook again. And this is where it was survival mode for AJ. Like, you know, first time we'd seen someone really look a match for him and be putting it on him and him really in danger. And that's why AJ become a massive star as well. You've got to think, that Dillian Whyte fight, he was in danger in that. In this fight, he was in danger. Kill or be killed. And we fucking love that as boxing fans. And at this point, both fighters had drawn blood on each other, right? They both hurt each other. And it was a race to the finish line then. And who's going to manage their energy better? Who's going to evade the punishment better? And honestly, you're going to think that the more experienced guy has the advantages in this moment, but that's not how it worked out. In round 11, it was the younger man who'd managed to recharge his batteries quicker, and Anthony Joshua comes out just instantly putting it on him. The second wind had arrived. I'm not even saying Klitschko was fucked or anything, just AJ, you could see, had much more impact in his punches. That uppercut was absolutely ridiculous, mate. There's pictures of his neck looking like it's going into orbit. This was the real moment where AJ knew. He must have thought, I've got him. Credit to Klitschko, right? I think Klitschko was like 42 years old here. And a lot of people thought, like, if Klitschko had been a bit younger, this would have been, you know, potentially a fight he could have won. And he definitely went out like a legend on his fucking shield here. But my God, you don't come back from that. You know what, though? There's a lot to be said for him, though. At his age, at 42, final fight of your career, for a world title fight against the guy who's basically going to run the division for the next, I don't know, 5-10 years. That's how you want to go out, man. You don't want to go out fucking around with easy fights and putting on glorified exhibitions. You want to go out competing at the very top. This is very fucking Lion King shit. This, like, the young lion had taken over from the old lion. Now, after that fight, there was a few fights that weren't my favourite AJ fights, if I'm being honest. He beat Takam, not a great performance though. The Joseph Parker fight, I mean, they're both very good fighters, but that just was a terrible fight to watch. Then he knocked out Povetkin, and he had accumulated another belt from beating Joseph Parker, and he was set to make his debut in America against Big Baby Miller. That was a fireworks level of opponent in terms of character, right? They were going to really give AJ someone good to go up against in terms of personality to launch him in New York. The problem was, Big Baby had more drugs in the system than a fucking chemist. So they needed to find a replacement. And as we all know, that man's name was Andy Ruiz Jr. The biggest mistake in matchmaking in the history of boxing, you could argue. This round in particular, it will go down forever as one of the most entertaining rounds of boxing, I mean, I think I've ever seen. And look, I bet a few boxing fans who really were studying the game knew this ain't someone you want to fuck around with. But even still, AJ dropped Andy Ruiz, which isn't an easy thing to do, right? I think that was the first time Ruiz had ever been on the deck in his entire life. And at this point, I remember I watched this, I did the live stream for it. I'm thinking, business is fucking usual, right? AJ's going to get him out of here. It's going to be the perfect debut in America. But Andy Ruiz Jr.'s chin is not to be fucking underestimated. And he himself that day basically said, oh, is that what we're doing, is it? We're fighting. I'm throwing back, motherfucker. And he rocked AJ with a counter hook. And AJ's on the deck before we know it. And fucking hell, he shook up the world, Andy Ruiz, at this point. It was mental. And sadly for AJ, he never really recovered from that shot in the entire fight. As much as he tried, and he really did keep going, his balance was all to fuck. Because those shots right above the ear, they're fucking terrible for a fighter because it's so hard to regain your feet afterwards. And it just never happened for him. And you can see the crowd are on their feet. They're thinking, what the fuck are we watching here? We're about to watch the biggest upset in boxing history since Mike Tyson lost his belt the first time. And look, really, AJ, you know, he should have got on his bike at this point. He should have stayed the fuck away from Andy Ruiz. But again, this was the mentality of AJ back then to some degree. We've seen against Dillian Whyte, he was a nasty fighter, and he was still trying to fight fire with fire because historically in his whole life, his fire was always the burning the fucking hottest. He'd never known anyone be able to outmatch him. And look, it must have been a humbling experience when that didn't fucking work out for him. Like, there you go. Followed up with combinations again. Third round, Ruiz putting it on him. AJ struggling to keep a hold of him. He can't. And he's going to hit the deck, and he does. That look of AJ must have been, what the fuck? And I remember interviewing Eddie Hearn about this, and he said sometimes when, you know, you're not ready for a war, you're not expecting a full-on war, and war arrives, it unravels pretty quickly, and it did. And when you look at the way AJ was fighting technically, as much as a lot of people have complained about, AJ altering his style, becoming a more of the defensively sound boxer, and potentially having some lackluster performances, what it has done is it's tightened up a lot of holes, and he's now not fighting anywhere near as sloppily as you see him here. I mean, it's obviously he's hurt here as well, but the improvements AJ's made because of this fight, while it was a bit of a backward step entertainment-wise for a while, now you look at him in his most recent fights and he's just leagues above where he was here. AJ actually was still trying to knock Anthony Ruiz out in the 7th round. That's the thing I've got to give him credit. He was throwing hard shots. He was trying. He spits his gum shield out here. He stands up and he walks into the corner, and his body language isn't great. That's one thing you can't say. He's not enjoying it. He doesn't want to be there, but he's not quitting. He's still saying, I'm ready to fight. He's saying, yep, ready to fight, ready to fight. Although he's clearly not wanting, he's not enjoying the experience. He's not saying, I don't want to fight anymore, I quit. So when people call him a quitter for this, I think it's harsh. Of course, he wasn't giving out good body language. He's getting his fucking arse kicked. How can you blame him? But equally, at no point did he say, no more, I'm done. And he could have stayed down. He could have took the knee. A lot of fighters do the whole wait for the 10 count, then get up. He didn't do that. So I think calling him a quitter is harsh. And what I can say, as you can see here from AJ, is he really handled the loss with a lot of class, man. The guy was obviously a bit humiliated because Andy Ruiz was seen as a bit of a joke because of his body type, and to lose your first big fight in New York like that, it can't be nice. And he really carried himself like a true champion, and that is something that he's carried throughout his career. Yes, he's had the odd wobble, but come on. Now, as you can see here, in round 5 of the rematch, AJ had won every round, right? He came to box this guy. He'd learned a lot more about how to keep the distance between him and the guy with the much shorter legs. Use those big, long legs. Keep the distance between you and him. Get that jab out. Punish him. And don't let him come inside and fight you. Don't give him a fight. Give him a boxing lesson. And that's exactly what AJ did. It wasn't the most entertaining fight, though. I've got to admit, there was a bit of me that felt a little bit like I could do with a trilogy fight where AJ really nails this guy. Because after someone beats you up like that, you want to beat them up back. And I did feel like, although AJ had won those belts back, I was still left wanting more. Look, I've got to admit, as much as I wanted blood and guts, if AJ had lost that fight against Ruiz, the mountain he would have had to have climbed to get back into the title picture, it would have been hard. And you just can't afford to fuck it up at this level. So he had to snatch them belts back. But we never got the trilogy. And I don't think we ever will, because Ruiz's career is such a shit show now, honestly. AJ then went and fought Kubrat Pulev. And as you can see here, the ending, pretty devastating. Pulev had already been bullied by him for much of that fight. Although what I will say is, I remember watching this, it was during the lockdowns. AJ started strong and he took quite a few rounds off to regain his energy. And I remember being quite concerned, because I'm thinking, if you're going to fight Tyson Fury, who's showing a great gas tank right now, you're going to have a better energy level throughout the fight than what you're showing me. It wasn't the most convincing performance by AJ, is what I'm saying. But he got the job done, and then the attention turned to Alexander Usyk, who a lot of people were saying at the time, why bother? Just fucking forfeit the title, go and fight Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury, one of those guys. Because Usyk, he's a hard fight, and in terms of name value, you're not going to get a lot of credit for it. He's not the most well-known fighter. But AJ, being the guy that he was, he wants legacy. He wants a track record of, I fought everyone in my era, the best of the best, and I beat them all. And he backed himself, and for that reason, I got to give him fucking credit. What I will say about this fight is my main takeaway from the Usyk fight was the movement of Alexander Usyk. It felt like in that first fight, Anthony Joshua, not only was his game plan all wrong, and obviously he's changed trainers since then for that reason, but he was chasing a shadow. It was like a normal bloke versus Peter Pan or something. Usyk was flying around that fucking ring. He wasn't staying still for 1 second, and AJ at the time was very much, he needed to plant his feet to really do the damage to you. And because Usyk wasn't stopping moving and the target wasn't staying still for more than a second, he couldn't really put a dent in Usyk. And to be fair to Usyk, I think he had so much respect for the power of AJ. It's like getting chased by a dog, right? You fucking run a lot quicker. The guy never stopped moving because he knew, if I fucking stop for more than a second here, I'm gonna be punished for it. And Usyk never stopped moving. And not only was the movement from Usyk great, it was the way he managed the fight, right? He took the first few rounds, he had that bit in the middle where he clearly regained his energy. They traded a few rounds, and AJ, landed a few nice punches. But towards the end of the fight, Usyk clicked it into fifth gear. And by that point, AJ had spent so much energy, which had been a problem in the Pulev fight the time before, in just keeping pace with Usyk because he wasn't willing to go balls to the wall. Because of the respect he had for Usyk, that when Usyk went into fifth gear, AJ was in deep trouble. And this is the 12th round where Anthony Joshua is just, the energy is waning and Usyk is just picking him apart. To be fair to AJ, despite, again, what people say about AJ's chin, people always say Tyson Fury's got a better chin than AJ or whatever. I've heard that from many people. AJ is not struggling to stay on his feet the way Fury did with Usyk, but he was exhausted, and it was quite clear that Usyk tactically and technically had overwhelmed AJ in that moment, and there was no question who the champion was. It would have been an utter robbery, even though it was in the UK, for anyone to get the belt that night than Usyk. Now, in the second fight, AJ came with a different trainer, Garcia, I believe it was. I didn't rate him very highly in the way he was training AJ, because between rounds, even when AJ was clearly losing a round, he was still telling him that he was winning. And that was a problem in the last fight. The corner was saying a lot of nonsense to him, and it just felt like AJ has all the tools to potentially win a fight against Usyk, but he's not using them the right way, and people who are around him aren't giving him the help he needs, and it just didn't feel like the changes he'd made for this fight were enough to get the job done. A lot of people, boxing pundits were saying, no, you were winning that fight. AJ wasn't winning this fight at any point, in my opinion, but what he did do is come with a bit more intent, a bit more willingness to try and close the show, to try and put it on him. But he was caught between that and also trying to measure his energy to stay with Usyk, and you either do one or the other, in my opinion, and Usyk outboxed him again in a very similar way, but just not quite as clear cut. You would give AJ maybe one more round than I gave him in the previous fight, but still, I still think AJ can do a lot better against Usyk than what he showed in that fight, but he just needed to find the right trainer. And when the decision was announced, it wasn't like the Ruiz fight where AJ regained the title. This was very final. It was, I've lost twice to this guy now, and he's probably given so much to try and beat this guy. Changed trainers, didn't work. He was very dejected and frustrated, and where he was able to say all the right things about the Andy Ruiz defeat, he kind of lost it a bit in the ring afterwards. He threw the belts, and it was just a low moment for AJ's career. I felt like that was a bit of a rock bottom for him, despite him fighting for a world title and going further than most boxers could ever dream of for his standards. It was a real hard pill to swallow, and that was where a whole nother rebuilding phase had to start, right? Again, more trainers, training with this guy, training with that guy. AJ fought Jermaine Franklin, which was a decent performance from him in terms of boxing skill, but it didn't quench the thirst for us. We wanted to see the old AJ, the AJ that is brutality, violence, and knockouts, and he was very cautious in that fight. He fought skillful fight, but it wasn't quite clicking. He was still pulling his punches and not chasing the knockout the way he used to. And in this fight against Robert Helenius, again, it was tentative, it was awkward, it didn't feel like he was brimming with confidence the way he'd previously fought when he's chasing Dillian White round the ring with his tongue out. Yeah, technically, he'd improved a hell of a lot since then, but mentally, where is AJ, the destroyer that we've always known? And this was quite a frustrating and unconvincing fight, actually. There was a lot of this going on, like not marching his man down, very sort of cautious and on the edge of the range, and look, he paid respect to Helenius, but before the knockout came, there was more questions than answers. Now, don't get me wrong, when the knockout did come, it was pretty fucking great, which as a fan let me know, okay, it's still there. That ability to switch the lights off is still very much there, but the psychology more than the technical boxing was a worry for me. Like, where is AJ's mind right now? Why is he struggling to find the flow that he used to have in the past? For me, I feel like a huge difference maker was the introduction of Ben Davison. Now, ironically, Davison had been previously the coach of the arch rival Tyson Fury, and he'd helped Tyson Fury recover from all that weight gain, and even lived with Fury, like sleeping on the mattress and all sorts, to make sure he didn't come off the rails again, and took him all the way back to the Deontay Wilder fight, and had done wonders for Fury. I mean, not many coaches will ever do more for a fighter Joshua than Ben Davison did for Tyson Fury. And Tyson Fury changed coaches, and God knows how that felt for Ben after he put so much into the guy. But now, to end up on Team AJ is so ironic. And what did AJ need, ironically? It was that psychological help. It was that confidence and that feeling of I can beat any man. And Ben had previously been criticised by Big John Fury, ironically, for not being technically good enough. And when you see in Tyson go on to change his skills and to arguably improve in some respects when he went and beaten Deontay Wilder in the second fight, it did let some people believe that maybe Ben isn't as good technically. But I tell you what, Ben showed them all and proved everyone wrong, because since then, he has gone on to really improve so many fighters. And technically, he was fantastic for AJ, because what he did for AJ was found that perfect balance between the old style, the aggressive Anthony Joshua, and the new style, which is someone who has to also be defensively responsible. And I've got to say that this Otto Wallen performance was one of the greatest performances of Anthony Joshua's career, and it really showed the work that Ben Davison had done with Anthony Joshua. What AJ was able to do in this fight is counterpunch, right? Get on the edge of range and to force his opponent to overcommit and punish those mistakes. Where AJ had previously been pulling his punches, not looking for the knockout, not punching through the target, all of a sudden, he'd found the range against Wallen perfectly, and when he was punching, especially with some of these body shots, my God, he was going straight through the target. And you see that, the way AJ is very on his toes and very aware of where to be, in and out of danger. Lovely left hook from Anthony Joshua there. And when he's coming into range, he's coming into range with authority. He's not doing it with hesitations like he had been for the previous few fights. And this is the 5th round where Anthony Joshua lands a unbelievable left hook. And again, when he threw punches in this fight, you could see a difference in him. It was like the confidence was back and he meant business. When Wallen goes back to the corner, I mean, the fucking clip of him, bless him, he was having no success in any round. And this is a guy who gave Tyson Fury a very good fight. He looked like he was in over his head. He looked like it was a man against a boy. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan of AJ. It's all fucking true. Look at that for a shot right on the, and then straight with the other hand. Perfect 1-2. Boom. Boom. Oh my God. And just to really compound the misery for Tyson Fury, he then went and did exactly the same thing, even quicker, against Francis Ngannou. You see Fury in the first row clapping. You're so happy, aren't you, pal? As if you haven't just been to hell and back with this geezer. But AJ was another level, and tactically, he'd found a way to bait the mistakes out of Francis Ngannou and counter-punch him. The second round, that over-the-top right hand against Ngannou, perfect punch placement. Everything AJ was doing in the Wallen fight and the Ngannou fight was utter perfection. And look, that doesn't mean that he is going to go in there and destroy Daniel Dubois just as easy as he's done to these lads, because Daniel Dubois is in great form right now, and I think we've got a great test for AJ. But I genuinely think this is the best version of Anthony Joshua I have ever seen. And if he is ever going to go on to become undisputed, to beat Tyson Fury, this is it. This is the time. But Daniel Dubois might have something to say about it, because this kid is in the form of his life right now, and I'm also going to be doing his story so far on the Pain Game YouTube channel later this week. So stay subscribed for that if you haven't already. Don't forget, Fight Night, the 21st of September, Riyadh Season Wembley Edition. We will be live. Can't believe I'm saying this. From Wembley Stadium, me and the lads on the Pain Game. Can't wait for it. Hit the like button. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you on the next one.